Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your source material and distill the most potent insights, giving you that shortcut to being well-informed.
Today, our mission is pretty simple. We're not just looking at how to build strength.
No, we're going deeper than that.
We are going to try and engineer failure proofing right against your own biology.
Exactly. This deep dive is all about the art of self-management.
Right. And if we think of our minds and, our habits like a computer, building strength is like rewriting some bad code.
Okay, the acquired habits,
Yeah.
the things we learn to do.
Yes, exactly. But what about the stuff you can't rewrite? The biological instincts, the hard-coded defaults we're all stuck with?
The things that just make us human, for better or worse.
Precisely. For those, brute force isn't enough. You need safeguards. It's like programming new subroutines into your life that contain or mitigate the harm from those defaults.
So we're moving from management by willpower to management by smart design.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack this blueprint for self-engineering. We're going to break this down into two parts. First, we need to know your two types of weaknesses.
And second, how to apply the two management strategies for them, strength and safeguards.
The end goal here is to stop being blind to our own flaws and, learn how to effectively handle the mistakes we're all going to make.
It's inevitable.
Okay, so the first step is always the hardest, isn't it? It's admitting that if you don't actively manage your vulnerabilities, the defaults will. Well, they'll just take command.
They always will. And the sources lay out two very distinct types of weakness. First, you have the inbuilt or biological ones.
These are the non-negotiables, right? Like hunger, thirst, fatigue.
Sleep deprivation, stress, intense emotion. These are your core operating system functions, and they're incredibly powerful.
They're the conditions that just instantly bias you toward reacting instead of, thinking.
Right. Then you have the second group, the acquired or habitual weaknesses. These are patterns that you build up over time.
Usually because there's a big delay between the action and the consequence.
And a massive delay, like reaching for your phone instead of doing deep work.
Or skipping the gym. It doesn't hurt you today.
Exactly. And that accumulation is what the sources call the formula for failure. And what's so fascinating is how simple it is.
It's just a few small errors, consistently repeated.
Yeah. Skipping one workout, staying up an hour too late. None of these feel like a disaster in the moment, but time is the great multiplier.
With good choices, it's your friend. It compounds benefits.
But with bad choices, time is just relentlessly accumulating compound interest against you.
So if it's that predictable, why do we keep failing? I mean, if we're logical beings, why do we let those small errors pile up?
Because logic often takes a backseat to survival. And this is where we have to talk about our blind spots.
Okay.
Our cognitive abilities were designed for, survival and reproduction, not for maximum accuracy in the world we live in now.
Can you break down that survival versus accuracy idea?
Sure. Think about it in evolutionary terms. It's like the rabbit that bolts.
Right.
If a rabbit sees a shadow and it runs, but it was just a leaf, well, that's a false positive, no big deal. It wasted a little energy.
But if it doesn't run when it's a fox, a false negative.
It's dead. The cost of that false negative is extinction. Our brains are fundamentally wired the same way. We prioritize safety over accuracy.
And that leads straight into self-deception.
It does. Richard Feynman had this perfect quote. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool.
That's a bit of a sting, but it's so true. We fail to see our own flaws, even when they are obvious to absolutely everyone around us.
And there are three main reasons for this. First, they're ingrained habits. They're just, part of how we're used to thinking. It's comfortable.
Second, seeing them really bruises our ego. That ego default. It challenges our whole self-image.
Of course. If you realize your weakness is, say, laziness, that attacks how you define yourself. And we protect that definition fiercely.
And the third reason is about perspective itself.
It's just limited.
Yeah.
Practically impossible to fully understand a system when you're a part of it. The person you are right now is completely blind to the clarity your future self is going to have looking back.
You just don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So since perspective is the core limitation, a deliberate shift in that perspective has to be one of the most powerful tools.
It is, and the sources give this incredible real-world lesson through the story of the USS Benfold and Commander Michael Abrashoff.
This is such a great story, a master class in change.
It really is. So the Benfold was this high-tech warship, but functionally, it was one of the worst-performing ships in the Navy, just broken.
And Abrashoff takes command in the late 90s, and in less than 20 months, he completely turns it around. transforms it.
Into a top-performing vessel. And here's the key part.
He didn't fire people? He didn't change the hierarchy or buy new tech?
No, the only real change was within himself. He realized he had to see the ship from the crew's perspective. He had to find his own blind spots.
And it all started with a cookout, of all things.
Yeah, a simple, almost inconsequential event. Abrashoff just noticed that the officers would cut to the front of the food line,
Leaving the sailors to wait.
and then they'd go eat by themselves on a separate deck. It wasn't a policy, but it was this visible signal. It basically communicated, you are second-class citizens.
So instead of giving an order, which would be the normal military way,
Right. He implemented a safeguard by changing his own behavior. He just went to the end of the long line, he waited, got his food, and sat down with the junior sailors.
and what happened?
The change was immediate. The next weekend, everyone waited in line together. No command was ever issued, but the cultural shift had begun.
Wow. He realized that to unlock people's intelligence, a leader has to see the organization from their perspective first.
That's the takeaway. The gap in our thinking exists because we believe our view of the world is the way the world really is.
To find out what you're missing, you have to deliberately shift your position. See yourself through someone else's eyes.
Which is foundational. But when you're tired or stressed, you need more than just perspective.
Right. You need tactical protection. Let's talk about those concrete safeguards. The tools that protect us from our defaults when we're in those unfavorable conditions.
The first, and maybe the most powerful safeguard, is just prevention. You have to engineer your life to avoid making big decisions when your biology is already compromised.
And the sources bring up the HALT acronym from Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
It's so simple but so effective. If you're facing a crucial decision and you answer yes to any of those.
The rule is simple. Delay the decision. Don't do it. Because your emotional, biological defaults will take over your rational brain.
Okay, so safeguard number 2 is creating automatic rules for success.
Yes. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel laureate, he points out that using pure willpower to chase your goals is fundamentally flawed.
It's a finite resource.
Totally. We exhaust it, we make excuses, and the whole process just gets harder over time.
It's that classic downward spiral. It becomes easier to say, oh, I had a long day, than to make the right choice.
So the solution is to replace those difficult, repetitive decisions with rigid rules.
Because rules don't require any in-the-moment decision-making.
Zero. And there's this fascinating psychological quirk where people will question your decisions, but they tend to respect your personal rules. They just see it as part of who you are.
Kahneman's own rule was never to say yes to a request on the phone.
Right, because he knew he was prone to agreeing instantly just because of social pressure. He wanted to be liked. So now he just tells him he needs to think about it.
It completely bypasses that default.
Oh.
And I have a similar rule, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I realized early in my career that email was just hijacking my morning. I was giving my most creative self to everyone else's agenda.
The least important stuff first thing.
Exactly. So my rule is no calls, no meetings until lunch. And the benefit is the consistency. It's often easier to follow a rule like go to the gym every day than go some days. It just removes the debate.
It absolutely does. Which brings us to the third strategy, creating friction. Behavior always follows the path of least resistance.
So if you want to avoid a bad habit, you have to increase the effort it takes to do it.
The classic example is just purging junk food from your house.
Sure, if you have to drive to the store to get the chips, that friction gives you a moment to reconsider.
So how did you use friction for that morning email problem?
I made a competitive bet. I told my colleagues I would buy them all lunch if they caught me with my email open before 11 a.m.
Ah, social pressure.
The social pressure and the cost created this really powerful external friction that just locked my focus on my most important work.
That's a brilliant way to use social accountability. Okay, the final safeguard is putting in guardrails.
Like checklists.
Exactly. The kind pilots and surgeons use to force us to slow down, go back to basics, and ask, what am I actually trying to accomplish here?
It's a structured pause. When you're stressed or rushed, those simple common sense questions are the first things you forget. Guardrails force you back.
So even with the best safeguards in the world.
If you're pushing your boundaries, mistakes are going to happen. They're just unavoidable.
But our default response is usually blame, right? It's the self-serving bias.
Heads, I'm right. Tails, I'm not wrong.
Success is because of my genius. Failure is because of some external factor. But if you keep getting bad outcomes, the world is telling you something.
It's telling you to update your understanding. But that's hard.
It is. You have to overcome two defaults. First, the ego default resists that blow to your self-image,
And then the inertia default resists the actual work of changing your
which
beliefs.
is why you have to make wrong thinking visible. You can't rely on memory because your ego will just distort the information to make you look better.
And this brings us to the single biggest mistake people make. It's often not the initial error.
It's the cover-up. The sources are so clear on this. The first mistake is expensive. The second one, the cover-up, cost a fortune
Why is it so much more destructive?
because it multiplies the consequences. Think of the kids who break a vase. The real trouble isn't for breaking the vase. It's for the lying, for hiding the pieces.
Because it destroys trust. And it halts any possibility of learning from it. You can't fix what you refuse to see.
Exactly. So learning to handle mistakes effectively is what really separates high performers. There are 4 crucial steps.
Okay, step 1. Accept responsibility. You have to acknowledge your contribution and take ownership of what comes next.
And keep that emotion default in check. This is a cognitive act, not an emotional reaction.
Step 2. Learn from the mistake. This is the reflection phase. You have to be honest about the thoughts and actions that led you here.
And if you find yourself blaming other people or saying, this isn't fair, you have to stop.
And go back to step 1.
Right. You haven't really accepted responsibility yet. Step 3 is commit to doing better. Formulate a concrete plan.
This is where you decide, do I need to build a new strength or just install a safeguard?
Yeah, it could be as simple as that coworker who realized his blind spot was perspective, so he made a rule to always ask, what did I miss?
And finally, step 4. Repair the damage as best you can. This takes consistent effort.
It does. But for irreversible mistakes, like a bad trade or a failed business, the key is accepting the loss and letting it go. You can't let it become an anchor that paralyzes you.
That inner dialogue is so powerful, isn't it? The story you tell yourself about your failure.
It's the most powerful story in the world. It determines if you're anchored to the past or mobilized for the future.
This whole deep dive really comes down to consistency. Good choices repeated make time your friend.
But neglecting your defaults, even with small bad choices, means time is just working against you, relentlessly.
And the power of a safeguard is that it works when your willpower is gone. It's a structure you build today to protect the person you'll be tomorrow.
Well said.
So, here's a final thought. Think about your most annoying colleague or your most frustrating friend. What is their single most predictable weakness? You are an expert at spotting the flaws in others.
We all are.
So how might you use that external expertise to develop a new safeguard for yourself this week, knowing that what you see so easily in others is probably just as visible to them, in you?
Something to think about.
Something to think about until our next deep dive.